Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. In an earlier statement attributable to the spokesman for the Secretary-General, the Secretary-General had welcomed the news that the crisis in the Old City of Jerusalem has been diffused in line with the status quo at the holy sites before the 14th of July. He hopes that the dialogue will continue and contribute to creating an atmosphere of trust among the communities. The Secretary-General will remain engaged with all stakeholders to this effect. Assistant Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs Ursula Muller briefed the Security Council on the latest humanitarian developments in Syria by VTC from Amman. She was speaking on behalf of the Emergency Relief Coordinator, Stephen O'Brien. She told the Council that while we continue to see a reduction of violence in some areas since the 4th of May Memorandum on De-Escalation, and particularly in Daraa Governorate in the last weeks, the humanitarian and protection situation remains extremely difficult for civilians in many parts of the country. She noted the resumption of military operations in the besieged area of eastern Ghouta in rural Damascus and Jobar neighborhood in Damascus City. She said that the United Nations and partners are responding to those who have been displaced and is ready to provide support in Raqqa City as soon as access and security conditions allow. The health situation, particularly the low availability of trauma care services, is a major concern in view of the intense fighting and shifting front lines. She added that we continue to engage with relevant parties on the ground to ensure that medical care is available to those who need it, but a lot more needs to be done. The Emergency Relief Coordinator's remarks are available in our office. Earlier, the Security Council passed a resolution extending the mandate of the UN peacekeeping force in Cyprus until 31st of January of next year. The Council welcomed the progress that has been made in the leader-led progress since 2014 and encouraged the sides and all participants involved to sustain their commitment to a settlement under UN auspices. On Mali, you will have seen the statement from the Undersecretary-General for Peacekeeping Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, that we issued yesterday. Mr. Lacroix said that he is deeply saddened by the news of a helicopter crash yesterday near Tabancourt in Gao region in northern Mali. The crash claimed the lives of 2 German peacekeepers. The helicopter was conducting surveillance over Tabancourt in the aftermath of violent clashes between the signatory armed groups Coordination de Mouvement de l'Azawad and Plateforme, which erupted on the 11th of July. We join Mr. Lacroix in conveying our profound sympathies to the families and loved ones of the victims and in expressing our condolences to the government of Germany and to the personnel of the UN mission. Ntabo Ntaberi Sheka, founder and leader of Nduma Defense of Congo, has surrendered yesterday to the UN mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, MONUSCO. He's been transferred to Goma. Sheka is wanted since 2011 under a national warrant for crimes against humanity, including for mass rapes. Sheka presented himself to MONUSCO in full awareness of the fact that he's wanted by the government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo to stand trial for alleged crimes. MONUSCO is committed to supporting the relevant judicial authorities in pursuing criminal prosecutions for all human rights violations in accordance with the rule of law. MONUSCO has a standing agreement with the DRC government to ensure that all persons in the mission's care who are handed over to the national authorities are treated in accordance with all relevant human rights standards. And the Economic and Social Council elected its new bureau for 2017-2018 at its organizational session today. The new president of ECOSOC is Ambassador Marie Chatardova of the Czech Republic. The other bureau members are Ambassador Mamadaminov of Tajikistan, Ambassador Inga Ronda King of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Ambassador Mark Beckstein of Belgium, and the forthcoming member of the bureau from the region of Africa. That is it from me. Are there any questions? Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you read out the hopes on Cyprus. I wanted to know if the UN has any response to the Turkish Cypriot leader saying that some heretofore closed towns will be opened up to returning, in one case, Maronites, and most people are saying this was a first step to opening up Varosha, the closed southern part of Famagusta. Does this, given the UN's role in the talks, and given that this move, is it something that was raised to Mr. Ida? What does the UN think of the reopening? What does it think of the 3 villages, and what would it say to the reopening of Varosha?
Well, as you know, in past years, there have been UN plans that involved the reopening of Varosha. There's been no agreement on those in the past. Obviously, If the parties are willing to consider new confidence-building measures, that would be welcome, but we'll have to see what they're willing to do.
What if it were reopened under Turkish Cypriot authority and the Greek Cypriot side did not, as it seems to be the case, agree to that?
I don't want to engage in hypotheticals. The basic point is we would welcome any confidence-building measures that are mutually agreed among the sides. Yes, Benny.
The SG just issued a statement on the at the end of the
I know where you're going with this.
Diffusing, but it seems that a new statement is warranted.
Depending upon what the developments are, we may say something further. But at this stage, we are aware of the latest reports that there has been there have been some clashes at the Al-Aqsa compound. We're trying to get some further details. Obviously, we want, in line with what we've been saying both earlier today and yesterday, we want all the parties to exercise restraint and for there to be a de-escalation of the situation. We have welcomed the steps towards restoring the status quo as of the 14th of July, and we want to see progress on that level. And like we said in the statement, the Secretary-General will remain engaged with all stakeholders to this effect.
General to issue statements in real time like this, you know, like, because there were a couple of cases in the last few days that he issued one statement and then issued another that kind of retracted the last, or not retracted, but
No, it wasn't a retraction of
not
previous
retraction.
statements.
I'm sorry, but there was like a change on the ground that forced for, like, he issued a statement about the 3 Palestinians were killed, and then he had to issue a statement about the 3 Israelis that were killed immediately after. I mean, is it wise to be in real time? Is the question, or
would you rather that we never issue statements?
No, I don't know. I'm asking, wondering out loud.
Part of the calculation that diplomats need to make is when is the most useful time to speak out. Whenever there's a worry that there could be a deterioration of the situation on the ground, we actually believe that it's more important to state what is needed to encourage positive developments, and that's what we've been trying to do.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, right. So what do you have to say about the fact that some measures were rolled back in Jerusalem, and yet the unrest still remains in and around the old city of Jerusalem? So what can be done now?
Well, we've asked for the dialogue to continue. We want an atmosphere of trust among the communities to be rebuilt, and that remains one of our priorities. Obviously, it's a good sign that the parties have been willing to deal with each other, to take the positive steps that have been taken in terms of returning to the situation that we had on the ground before the middle of July. We want all communities to work towards building trust with each other, to exercise restraint, and to take positive actions to de-escalate the situation. Yes, Sherwin, you had. Okay, Ben?
Yeah, just on the statement from last night, you named the Israelis and asking them to demonstrate restraint, but there was no specific naming of the Palestinians. Why were the Palestinians left out of this statement?
We've issued many statements in the last few days, and if you look at all of our statements put together, we call on all the sides to exercise restraint and to de-escalate the situation. What?
Involved in this situation? Is it just, are you blaming Israel? Or are you blaming both sides? What I mean, the statement just seemed a bit odd.
The statement was not there to lay blame. It's there to express our concerns and to encourage progress towards resolving the situation. We're happy with the steps that were taken in the hours since then. Yes.
On a related issue, specifically about the status quo. The status quo was broken when the security situation on the ground changed after 3 policemen were shot at and weapons were found in the compound. So by saying you want to return to the status quo, you basically are requesting that no security measures will be taken to address that situation.
That's not the case. That's not the case. We've made it clear that we want the parties to confer on appropriate security arrangements. The way it's been handled in the past and the way we want to see it handled this time as well is for the Israeli authorities and the authorities of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan to work with each other. There are some positive and encouraging signals about that, and we're hopeful that that will help to restore the sense of trust that we feel is crucial.
Yet you keep talking about the status quo as if that is something that is, well, static. The problem with the status quo is that it was new problems came that need to tweak the status quo in a way that more security will be guaranteed for all. So it lends itself, in other words, to say don't do metal detectors, don't do cameras, don't do anything that would be interpreted as breaking the status quo. What can be done?
Again, as I pointed out, the bottom line for us is that security measures are agreed to by the relevant parties. We want, in particular, for Israel and Jordan to continue with the historic role that they've played in dealing with each other on this matter. Yes.
Well, just to follow up, exactly who are the relevant parties? Are you saying it's only Israel and Jordan? Because
No.
even if they were to reach an agreement, let's say on some use of cameras or other non-obtrusive surveillance technology, you have other parties involved. The Palestinian Authority, I believe President Abbas
Yes.
is still.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
Let me just finish the point. President Abbas is still, as far as I know, not rescinded his decision to cut off coordination with Israel on security matters, even after Israel took the step of removing the metal detectors. And you also have the religious council, the WAC Council, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, that still rejects whatever Israel has done and has called for continued boycott, prayers in the streets. So who are the parties?
I'm sorry, that's not. I don't believe that that's the case. I believe
actually,
call
unless
was
that
rescinded.
changed within the last 12 to 14 hours, that is the case.
That was changed within the last few hours. Yes.
Can you cite a specific statement by the council, the WAC
No,
Council?
I don't speak for the WAC. I speak for the Secretary-General of
Well,
the UN. But
how do you,
there have
okay.
been positive movements both by the religious community leaders and by the government of Israel, and we've been encouraging that.
Then how do you explain the clashes that you just referenced? I mean, the point is, you talk about the relevant parties, but you seem to dance around the role that's the imams in and around Jerusalem, the Palestinian Authority figures, Hamas, and so forth, that are continuing to incite unrest. So could you please clarify?
Yes, we want all of the relevant parties to play a helpful role, and that includes the Palestinians, that includes the Israelis, that includes Jordan, that includes the Waqf, which, as far as we're aware, have allowed for worshippers to enter into the compound, which is what's been happening in the past hours. There has been some violence, which, according to the latest reports, has to do with a crowd surge into the mosque. We're hopeful that it will be resolved, that matters will be resolved peacefully, that all parties will show restraint, and that the situation will be de-escalated. Yes, you had one.
Sure. I wanted to ask you about this Myanmar. Given what's taking place there, today the replacement without really any explanation of Ms. Jae-sing by Mr. Darusman on top the three-person panel that the government is not allowing in. Apparently it's because she said the situation of the Rohingya is deplorable and said that it might be a genocide. And I wanted to know, is that in the UN system generally, which of those two words makes somebody perceived to be biased that they have to be removed from a panel? And has the Secretary-General taken any moves since the last time this was asked to you to ensure that this three-person panel, whoever chairs it, can actually get in and assess the situation of the Rohingya?
Well, regarding the question of access, of course, we encourage all member states to work with the Human Rights Council and with the bodies that the Human Rights Council sends, and we will continue to do so. Regarding the decision on a replacement, I will leave it to my colleagues in Geneva to explain how the Human Rights Council comes about its decisions. That's a member state decision that I wouldn't be able to describe from here.
But was it so? I mean, I guess I'm just wondering. They put out a press release and they just said Dar Osman is in. They didn't even mention the person taken out. So when you say it's member states, was there a vote taken? I'm asking you, I guess, as the UN system in terms of transparency.
Like I
why
said,
did it happen?
Please follow up with my colleagues in Geneva. They can explain the actions of the Human Rights Council. Yes.
Thanks. There's a new report out today that draws a pretty strong link between gang violence in the Central American Northern Triangle and the movement of children to the United States, the migration. It sort of undermines the link, the notion that these are just economic migrants. I'm curious if this migration topic has come up in recent meetings between the SG and members of the U.S. administration, and sort of more broadly what the UN's thinking is on this migration crisis in Central America and what's being done about it.
Well, as you're aware, we have a representative, Luis Arbor, who's been talking about this. In fact, she spoke on migration issues just a few days ago in a speech that we've made available, and I just refer you to what she's been saying. Yeah.
Sure. I want to ask you, I guess, about Catalonia, Cameroon, and the Inglapsang case. In Catalonia, it's reported that and I just wanted, I guess, if you can confirm receipt that the Catalonia and its entity called Diplocat has submitted a request to the UN Electoral Assistance Division for observation in their referendum that they want to have. And basically, Spain has bragged that the UN has not even confirmed receipt to avoid any attempts at manipulation. So it just strikes me, it was submitted by the Carter Center. Can you find out whether in fact it was received? And if it's not going to be reviewed favorably, can you state why not?
I think I have some language on our general rules about this that I can share with you afterwards.
How about the actual receipt? Because Spain seems to acknowledge that it was submitted, but they're very proud and brag that the UN won't even confirm receipt. And does the UN generally confirm at least receipt of letters from a place like the Carter Center, or not?
Well, this office confirms receipt of letters to the Secretary General. I'm not aware of letters that just go to different parts of the system.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you, I guess I can boil this down. There are two things about Cameroon. One, there's a report of speaking of electoral assistance, of somebody from François Lanseny-Fall's office, Francis Njida, and some others that seem to be from the EU going on an electoral trip there. So given the expressed concern by DPA about particularly the situation in the Anglophone areas, is it true that the UN is assisting in the upcoming election of a country that's had the same president for more than 30 years? And if so, what's the UN's role? What do they think about the electoral system in Cameroon?
I don't believe we have an electoral role with Cameroon, but I'll check what DPA says, what the Department for Political Affairs says about it.
And as apparently there's a delegation meeting with Adama Dieng today, and I'd like to know, I guess I'm asking you to get a readout of that meeting from the UN side of the advisor on the prevention of genocide.
Well, Mr. Dieng doesn't normally provide readouts of all of his various meetings. If he has something to say, I'll let you know. But otherwise, I wouldn't promise readout of those meetings because he meets with a variety of groups just to gain information on the various situations at hand.
Okay, and finally, just on the Inglapsang case, you received this from DGACM, so I wanted to ask you, I mean, and I appreciated that the executive officer, who I don't think is a spokesperson, was willing to answer some questions, but I now want to ask you about what he did answer. What he answered is that even now, 2 years or more after the indictment of John Ash as President of the General Assembly for allegedly using the office to further a business scheme, it seems that DGACM of the Secretariat will do anything that an office of a PGA said. He said if they request an email address, I mean you can receive the email. He said we don't look.
I received the email.
Yep.
That's not what he said.
What did he say?
No, then you have the language of the email. Just look.
Okay, then I'm asking you because I said to him, Mr. Francis Lorenzo was never listed as a special advisor on the webpage of the PGA. He was a full-time deputy permanent representative of a country. So does DGACM check these two facts before giving out? And he said no. He said we do what the PGA asks. And so I wanted to know, is that appropriate after 2 years?
If the President of the General Assembly asks for things like office space or desks or computers, they facilitate that. That was his explanation.
What if he asked for a change to a UN document, as took place under Ian Batnaro, to add in the name of a company? Is that still the practice at the UN?
those are unrelated issues.
Right, but I'm asking you.
No, those are unrelated issues. He's talking about having appropriate office facilities upon request from the President of the General Assembly.
Was it appropriate for DGACM to add the name of Sun Kyanip Foundation to that resolution? From a UN perspective.
You're aware of the problems that were disclosed at the time. I don't have anything to add to what we said at the time.
And who was held responsible for adding the name of the company?
I have nothing to add to what we said at the time. Have a good afternoon, everyone.